Choosing to retire at 55 versus 65 seems like a math problem, right? You add up your savings, subtract your spending, and you see if the numbers work. But after sitting across the table from families wrestling with this decision, I've learned that the biggest difference I see between people who retire early and those who wait has nothing to do with their paycheck. It's about a trade-off that almost no one talks about, but everyone feels. And once you see what that trade-off really is, you'll understand why life at 55 can look completely different than a retirement at 65. My name's Eric Amzalag. I'm a certified financial planner. I've guided dozens of families through this exact crossroads. And what I've learned is that the right retirement age is rarely a fixed number. It's about designing a system that helps you navigate the hidden trade-offs without falling into the traps that most retirees never see coming. So today I'm going to show you what retiring at 55 actually looks like compared to 65, the trade-offs, the surprises, and the emotional reality of each path. Now, one couple I worked with framed both sides of this dilemma perfectly. The wife looked me in the eye and said, "I'd rather have 15 amazing years of retirement than 25 mediocre ones." But her husband had a completely different perspective. He said, "I've worked too hard to risk running out of money. I want the peace of knowing that we'll be secure no matter what." And so let's look at what really changes between 55 and 65 and why so many couples find themselves torn between retiring early or not. And when you zoom out, the difference between 55 and 65 looks like two different trails on a mountain. Retiring early gives you the certainty of health and energy, but it comes at the cost of financial flexibility later. Retiring later, on the other hand, gives you more certainty about your money, but at the cost of your health capital. Right? The vitality that you can never buy back. Now, I've seen spouses in real conflict over this issue. One partner feels like their body is giving out and they want to start living now, while the other feels like their career has been a steady climb and they don't want to give up the security, the guarantee of more years of work. One couple I worked with really captured this tension. The husband had spent decades fixing commercial roofs, and his work was actually quite taxing on his body. By his late 50s, the toll was obvious. He had back pain, aching knees, and a sense that every extra year on the job was a potential fall from a roof in a lifetime without being able to do physical activity. So he was ready to retire early, even if it meant living a little leaner. His wife, on the other hand, worked as a healthcare administrator. She loved her work, her body wasn't breaking down, and she felt she still had more to contribute. And for her, retiring at 65 felt like the natural course. But for her husband, it felt impossible. Now for him, every year he kept working felt like stealing time from his health. And that kind of tug-of-war doesn't just strain a retirement plan, it strains a marriage. And this is where the hidden trade-off really begins. The question is, can you afford to retire early? Or more importantly, what does it cost you to keep working? Now at 55, you run headfirst into a system that is designed to keep you working. Retirement accounts are locked up until age 59 and a half. Medicare doesn't start until 65. Social Security is not available until 62. And early withdrawals can carry penalties. But that doesn't mean that it is impossible to do this, right? With smart financial planning, there are solutions. Things like a 72T or the rule of 55, or even just proactively building bridge funds in a taxable account that allows you to access money penalty-free. Now, the biggest shock for most people, though, is going to be health insurance. I'll never forget the look on a client's face when we ran the numbers for private coverage in their late 50s. Their jaw dropped. For most people, seeing that premium number is enough to shut the conversation down. But the reality is, with the right strategy, those costs aren't nearly as immovable as they look. By carefully coordinating which accounts someone draws from and when, we are able to reduce someone's healthcare premiums significantly. And this is where generic advice falls apart. A lot of financial planners stop by saying, well, you'll just need to budget more for healthcare until Medicare kicks in. But that isn't planning, that's punting. Healthcare in early retirement requires a sophisticated strategy that blends tax planning, withdrawal sequencing, and policy knowledge. And without that, the costs can look overwhelming. And that's exactly why so many people feel stuck, because most people aren't trained to integrate all of those moving parts. Now, on the other side of the argument, the industry absolutely loves the idea of you working until 65 or later. Why? Because the longer you delay retirement, the more that you keep assets in accounts that generate fees for brokerage firms, the longer you keep contributing to Social Security, and the less you draw from Social Security, and the more taxes you pay. What you end up giving, though, is your vitality. So the question is there a right amount of extra growth in your portfolio that can replace the ability to hike or travel or play with your grandkids while you're still at your physical best? Now, I'm thinking of a client that I worked with a few years ago. He had always dreamed of hiking the national parks on the West Coast with his wife once he retired. Now, on paper, it looked safer for him to keep working until 65. Larger Social Security checks, more time for his investments to grow, and of course, continued health insurance through his employer. So he pushed through, but by the time he finally retired, his knees had given out from years of warehouse work. And instead of long hikes, his doctor was prescribing him physical therapy. And I still remember him saying, "I built the perfect financial plan, but I waited too long to live it." And that's a real danger, right? On paper, later retirement almost always looks safer. But in real life, you can end up with money that you'll never spend and memories that you'll never make. And so is the question really, should I retire at 55 or should I retire at 65? What if the better question was, when is the earliest I could retire without giving up my health or my financial security? And that question has transformed so many conversations with my clients. Because too often we see retirement as black and white. Either we keep grinding away at a high-paying, high-stress job until we can finally walk away forever, or we quit early and hope that the numbers will somehow work out. But the truth is, it doesn't have to be all or nothing. Smart planning can open doors we don't usually think about. For example, I worked with a client who had spent decades working as a surgeon, and on paper, staying another 10 years looked like the safe choice, but he was emotionally and physically drained. And the real breakthrough came for him when we explored what it might look like to transition into work that was more meaningful, even if it paid less. Here's what happened. Moving from one career to another career did cut his income by 50%, but his stress dropped by 85%. And that's what I call an asymmetric result, right? That's when the payoff is far greater than the cost. He went from dreading every Monday morning to actually enjoying his work week again. And sometimes the best retirement decision isn't about leaving work altogether, right? It's about reshaping what work means. The right kind of work doesn't even feel like work at all. It can give you immediate stress relief, more time for family and for your health, and still provide a strong financial base while you prepare for your full retirement. And in that client's case, the shift created a beautiful middle ground. He had the breathing room to actually enjoy life in his late 50s, and by the time he transitioned to full retirement, he arrived with both financial security and the memory of healthier, happier end to his working career. Now, the real power of planning isn't just discovering that a middle ground exists, it's realizing that there are many middle grounds, and you get to design the one that fits your life best. So, now that you've seen these dramatic differences, the trade-offs of retiring early, the cost of waiting too long, and the possibility of finding a unique middle ground, I want to walk you through the comprehensive approach that we use with every client to determine their optimal retirement age. When clients come to us, we model out retirement options using our Summit system. Instead of treating retirement as an all or nothing decision, we run projections for all different retirement ages. We model income, healthcare costs, taxes, and lifestyle possibilities at each stage. We then stress test those numbers against different life expectancies, different market conditions, and different spending needs. And here's the key. Good comprehensive planning doesn't just spit out a single answer like age 60 is the magic age. What it does is it opens the door to a myriad of customized options designed around your individual needs and values. And that might mean one spouse retires while the other continues working. It might mean both spouses downshift into a lower stress job, whether that's reduced hours or reduced pay, or even something entirely different, but more fulfilling and less stressful. And sometimes it's as simple as transitioning into a lower skill, lower stress role that provides breathing room while still keeping financial momentum. For the clients I just mentioned, the Summit system showed them exactly how their middle ground choice could work. It gave them confidence that they weren't gambling their future, but rather making a wise decision supported by careful planning. And if things weren't to go well with that middle ground plan, they always knew they had backup options. And so their realization was powerful. Proper retirement planning eliminates false binaries. And that's the real difference between age 55 and 65 retirement planning, right? It's not actually about picking an age. It's about building a plan that gives you the confidence to live your best years with both freedom and stability. And the truth is, you don't get do-overs in retirement, but you can prepare wisely. And the earlier you start, the more options you'll have. Retirement's kind of like a maze. There are twists and turns and plenty of hidden booby traps along the way. But the goal isn't to avoid the maze entirely. It's to use a system that's navigated the maze before and knows where the booby traps are so that you can move through those booby traps confidently and actually enjoy the adventure. Now, if you want to see exactly how to design your retirement around your values and your dreams, I put together a video that walks you through my 4-step system for creating your dream retirement, and you can find the link in the description below this video. At the end of the day, retirement doesn't have to be a gamble, and with the right system, you can avoid the booby traps, enjoy the adventure, and live the years you'll never get back. So thank you as always for your time and attention. I'll see you in the next video.